Let's update you with the front pages of the newspapers on this Thursday morning. Here's how they're looking. The Telegraph, first of all.
Mummy is coming home. The Telegraph leading on the freeing of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, who'll be reunited, or has been reunited with her husband and daughter after 6 years in an Iranian jail.
The Mirror also covering, as are a lot of other newspapers, the freeing of Nazanin, as her husband reveals that the first thing his wife wants upon returning home is a nice cup of tea.
Quite right. Here's The Guardian, mentions the freeing of fellow prisoner Anousheh Ashouri, but notes that a third prisoner has only been temporarily released from Iranian jail.
And here is the Mail. They talk about Miss Zaghari-Ratcliffe's daughter, 8-year-old Gabriella, has been ecstatic at her mother's release, saying she cannot wait for Mum to walk her to school.
Isn't it lovely to have some positive stories on the front of the papers? Let's go through them. Today we're joined by the political editor for The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and his usual partner in crime on a Thursday morning, the former editor of The Daily Star and, of course, current columnist for many publications, Dawn Neesom.
You two want to get straight into this story. You've each got a take on it, David. We go to The Guardian. This is front page.
Yes, it's on the front page of every paper this morning. And that picture is sensational of her smiling, looking well, despite her 6 years incarcerated. And there's two elements to this. The main element, which a lot of papers have gone on, strangely The Guardian haven't, they've done a very straight headline, Zaghari-Ratcliffe released after 6 years in Iran jail, which I think most people will know by the time they pick up the paper this morning, because it was on the television all day. But the other papers have gone for put the kettle on, I want my mum to take me to school, and all the human elements. So there's that side of the story about how they rebuild their lives. I mean, little girl Gabriella was probably only just walking when her mother was taken away, and now she'll be she's at school. So there's a lot of rebuilding to do there. The other side of it, of course, is the political side. This is real politics, because we've done a deal with a gangster regime with nuclear ambitions. We've paid them 400 million quid. And some people find that sticks in the craw a little bit. And at the same time that this woman was being released, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, was with another regime. He was in Saudi Arabia, who are sworn enemies of Iran, doing a deal to get some oil.
So, David, I mean, Liz Truss in the Foreign Office, she was at pains to try and ensure we didn't report this as a ransom being paid by the British government for the release of prisoners. That being said, I mean, it was sort of paying off a bill that we owed from the 70s.
1970s.
The question, I suppose, is why now we've suddenly decided to pay off a bill we've owed for decades?
Well, there's a number of reasons that play into this. I mean, the sanctions imposed were the United States and the European Union, which we were a part of at the time. And, of course, we're not in the EU now. The United States have given us the nod, and it's been seen as a debt repaid. Of course, what happened, these chieftain tanks that were sold to the old Shah of Iran, the revolutionaries who took over the country say, you still owe us that money. So,
well, it also raises a question, Dawn. What if Ms. Zaghari-Ratcliffe was a spy and there's some deal being done here? Everybody accepts, the government says, well, she's not a spy. They're not going to say, especially while she was in Iran, oh, actually, yes, she's one of our best out there. And I'm not saying the woman is, and this has been strenuously denied,
of course,
least of all by her family. But
well, I mean, there is always a but, and will we ever really know? But I mean, you also have to think that this the money that has been paid is also partly to save Boris's skin as well, isn't it? But the negotiations have been going on for 6 years, which is curious timing given the whole Brexit thing happening at that time as well. But I mean, I wanted to concentrate on the human side of it, regardless of what her background actually is, and Boris saying that she was training journalists, which condemned her, in theory, to even further time out there. But the reason I picked them out is because they are such lovely stories, lovely pictures. Her with Gabriella, Richard, her husband, who has campaigned tirelessly I mean, the strength of this family is
But let me ask you,
astonishing.
there are other people detained. There are other people with the same accusations against them, not only in Iran but around the world. The man who came back in the flight with her.
Yeah,
Yes, of course. Whose
We
name
never-
I don't even know.
Anusha and
Right.
Shuri.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
but it's
so
the
how
fact
come-
that it was a woman who had her baby that was with her,
Yeah.
forcibly removed
Yeah.
from her. She spent long periods of jail where she was on hunger strike. Her conditions were terrible. She wasn't able to contact home. All of that horror.
Yeah.
And to now see them together. I don't know if people saw the footage of them being reunited at RAF Brize Norton last night. Unfortunately, the camera who was filming it just missed the actual
Yes,
moment. But you can
absolutely.
hear the
Yeah.
sobs.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it in makeup this morning and I cried. Yeah, we haven't got the sound, which is
Yeah.
a shame. I wish we could play the sound on that. I will try and sort that out for you.
And you know what? I think it's incredibly moving. You know, it's particularly touching, and this might be a girly, emotional thing, but the fact that she's wearing Ukrainian colours as
Right.
well.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I asked the newsroom, is this a statement? And they said, no, it's not really blue,
Oh,
it's
come
grey.
on.
It's a statement,
Yeah,
isn't
of course
it?
it's a statement.
Do you think you and I are making a statement about
Yes, happy St. Patrick's
in
Day.
green today?
There you go, there's the shot. OK, so it's the human side to it that's really...
And I love
you.
the fact that Richard, who went on that horrible hunger strike, and you could see, you know, how ill he was looking. But one of the things he goes, well, better go home and tidy up. Because you can imagine every husband everywhere saying that, going, oh, my God, 6 years of mess. I've got to tidy up.
So true.
Yeah, I mean,
she's going to come home and cry.
The third element of this story, which we've just missed out, which we, the geopolitics, we also did the human side, is the drama of when she was taken to the airport. I mean, it's an astonishing story how they took her to the airport, then they held her again, then they questioned her, then they were bullying her, and her husband saying he didn't know she was actually out until the plane
You wouldn't believe
wheels
it,
were
would
up.
you?
And that's happened so many times.
Yeah, there's been a lot of false dawns for them.
6 years of that she's injured.
So this is yesterday you're talking
Yes,
about?
yeah.
And, sorry, they still haven't made up their mind. They question her again. And the deal's been done, 400 million handed over.
It's just a form of the torture, isn't it? It's just the mental torment.
She's a hostage, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Right. David, Ukraine, the situation there, and, another round of peace talks. Where are they getting to? This is Financial Times front page.
Yes, it's a glimmer of hope, and that's as far as we can put it, really, that there may be a chance, a chink in the armour of Russia, and that they may be able to come to a deal. It's all about, it all follows on from President Zelensky saying the other day that he's willing to reject the idea of joining NATO. There's a 15-point plan being thrashed out between both sides. The big sticking point will probably be Vladimir Putin, because he seems to be more and more erratic. But the two sticking points seem to be, well, it's agreed that they might not join NATO, but the West has given a lot of support and a lot of comfort and protection to Ukraine. So they've got to convince Russia that they won't be joining any defence treaties in that sense. The other thing, of course, is Putin, whether he accepts it. I mean, the big obstacle there is that these other places, Crimea and Donetsk, he'll want to keep them as Russia, and Ukraine will want them back.
The thing that worries me about this story, David, is the fact that that Russia won't withdrawal. If Kiev declares neutrality and accepts limits on its armed forces, who is monitoring those limits on the armed forces? Oh, Russia. So really, how much freedom do they actually have in this?
And Dawn, that ties in perfectly to the story you've chosen in the Express about this erratic rant that Putin went on yesterday. I mean, really chilling, to be honest.
I watched it and I listened to it, and I saw your tweet about it, and all this sort of like... the cast and sort of these people. I really couldn't work it out. Couldn't make head nor tail of it. But I mean, Putin has issued. They've analysed it for me. Thank you very much, Daily Express. Issued a chilling warning to the West and the oligarchs. Still have trouble saying that word. Telling the scum and traitors that Russia will spit them out like a midge that flew into their mouths. What? Who's writing this script?
Well, I don't think there's any written script.
So where did that come from?
Ranting.
But it's basically having a go at the billionaires that, with their villas in Miami or the French Riviera, can't get by without their oysters and their foie gras. And they're so
I think he's got a villa or two around the world as well. I mean, he's benefited of this. And you actually sit and think, do people not know this? Is the news and the information restricted to such a degree?
I mean, Palace has got on the Black Sea.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes Buckingham Palace look like a hovel.
Yeah. just very, 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 very strange with that. The theatre bombing, David, front page of the Eye.
Yes,
this one.
Behind all these talks and rants from the president of Russia, the bombings and the deaths still go on. You know, up to 1,200 people were inside a theatre which was being used as a bomb shelter when it was attacked. And then there are other stories in here on the Eye. They've listed them all. A convoy of evacuating civilians being hit by rockets, and 10 Ukrainians killed while queuing for bread. So the horror and the evil of the Russian troops continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes words just fail you.
Well, the fact that the words "child" were written on the ground, I mean, it's just so sad.
Dawn, here's a story which I think's very interesting, very, very important. Front page of The Sun, and Denise van Outen, the television presenter and actress, she says that at the age of 15, she was taped by someone she was in a relationship with, an older man, but she was the victim then of a covert sex tape.
Yeah, absolutely very interesting with what's going on now with the social media aspect and revenge porn and things. Denise has written in her autobiography, A Bit of Me, From Basildon to Broadway, and the Sun is serialising it. And excuse me, I've got a cold, not COVID, by the way. And they've got an interview with Denise as well. And she's talking for the very first time, Eamon, as you just said, about how this older boyfriend, she was only 15, but it was a consenting relationship, he was 23, filmed them having a sex. She didn't know about it until she was in Big Brother, where she became world famous, really famous, and he threatened to release the tape. And it had to go to court. She was anonymous in the court case, so we didn't know about it then. But basically, when the police went to this guy's house, there was a load of sex tapes under the floor where he'd filmed all his girlfriends. So it's not just like a one-off, revenge, because you're split up. He had history for this as well. So he's not named in the book, and we don't know who he actually is. But it's a chilling story, especially in the light of what's going on now and how little times have changed.
And how people are always set, not only for their own delectation, maybe to make money or blackmail out of this. Max Clifford was notorious for this.
Yes.
The publicist. And recently I've seen a very high-profile person in the news being taped, and you say to yourself, right, is this a business? Was this set up deliberately to see this, and then, or is it standard fare? Not that we know, but I think this is really interesting, and good on Denise on speaking.
No,
absolutely, really brave.
And one of the reasons she's saying she's speaking out now in particular is because she's got a 12-year-old daughter, Betsy, and she wants other, young girls like her daughter to be aware,
very careful, but
be very careful.
How would you have known if someone was secretly filming you? This is
Of course, the government have acted on this. The revenge porn, as it's now called, has become a criminal offence. Hopefully this can't happen again. But nevertheless, how much of this went on,
And it's going on.
And is still going on.
Yeah, it's still going on. Guys, really appreciate it. David and Dawn, they're going to be back in about 45 minutes' time. Hope you can join them.